I don't know, folks. I'm working with some new equipment here. Can I get a 5x5? And let's see if there's any hope whatsoever to this thing actually working. Can I get a 5x5? I can start doing roll call even if you can't hear me. Miss Sunrise, Don. Good to see you. Lori Driscoll, how are you? Good to see you. Marion Calabro. Sarah Bauman, how are you? Wally, and I got a 5x5. Bacon Bits Ben Turner, it's an honor. Roberta, good to see you. Gemini Girl. Michelle Koalalu. Look at all of those 5x5. My others keeper, good to see you. Lynn Sanity, there's my girl. Brazy, how are ya? Allison Metcalf, Palumbo. And Tamber June, Jason P. Susie Fitz, good to see you. My sister, Curious George. I've never had a sister named George. I've had a few curious sisters. Two, in fact. Wally, what's happening? Miss Marcy, how are you? Jennifer B, good to see you. Hap, what's happening? Lisa Trimble, there's my girl. I was talking about you earlier, actually. Oddly enough. Jamie Palmer, what's up? I'm glad you're here. Sandy Wendy, good to see you. Leandra, I don't know if I've ever said hello to you. Listen, people, smack that subscribe button. I'm getting a little sick and tired of lurkers, with all due respect. What do you say, Bo? Somebody just got fed, or he just got something, because he comes and sees me. Oh, look at that. I'm telling you, the guy sits down next to me all the time now. Bo is starting to, we're bonding, me and Bo. I'll be honest, this is a dog that, Bo is a challenge, especially if you're a cat person, because he's 7 feet tall. I mean, he's a loving guy. He really is. He's one of the most affectionate guys you'd ever want to meet, but his legs, his inseam is longer than mine. The guy's a freak. I mean, a good kind of freak. He's fun to go out and run around with and whatnot, but in close quarters, it's a little bit rough. You know what I'm saying? It's just a little rough in close quarters. True story. Also, hit the bell for notifications. Spanx Calhoun must be beating this because in the 3.5 years I've been doing this, Kristen Melinda, one of my favorite people. Truly and honestly, one of my favorite people. East Coast Fancy Nancy, what's happening? Good to see you. That would be East Coast Fancy Nancy, even though it doesn't say it. Just Joan, I'm glad you're here. Angie Mo, what's up? Cricket, Don Gloves, I'm glad you're here. All right, we're gonna fire some stuff up. I don't know what the hell we're gonna talk about. Really don't, but we're gonna fire some stuff up. I'm in the country. We could probably get a few laughs out of that, but I'm probably gonna hold the laughs off for a later date because I think they're probably funnier if I do them with a partner. Tommy, am I doing okay? How am I dealing with all of this? Well, you know, it's good to see you, Lisa. I'm glad that you're here. I don't know. Jennifer B, I seem more relaxed. I seem happy. Well, that's kind. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. It's I'm not gonna lie to you, people. This is it's been a lot. KM Cheesehead, good to see you. Steph, 22 years sober. What the hell? Good Lord. That is worth a 3.5 foot tall participation trophy, the second largest sobriety participation trophy on the East Coast. Yeah, there's a slightly larger one apparently somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. Congratulations, that's epic. I'm telling you, I live for those things. I really do. There's nothing better than people who are winning. My other's keeper, glad you're here. Hey, needing a meeting. How are you? Incarnasol, glad you're here. This is a struggle, people. It's a struggle to watch your best friend go through it. You know what I mean? Look, Chameleon, glad you're here. Packers girl, what's happening? Lumen. I am very, very fond of Quibble, and this is it's painful. It's painful to watch her go through it. Jill Judd, how are you? Blessed to crochet. Even when you get away from a bad situation, you don't get away from a bad situation, and that's a reality. And I mean, over time you can, right? And it's unfortunate that it's one thing after another. You know what I mean? It really is. It's one thing after another. And if you go back, she's had a lot of them end to end, and nobody deserves that much BS. Subi, good to see you. Glad you're here. Whine a little bit more. Glad you're here. So it's hard to watch. I'm glad that she's not alone. You know what I mean? But it's a difficult thing to watch. Ooh, when that AC comes on, it literally comes on my junk. I just, yeah, that was That was like a blast of wind right to the nether regions. Didn't see that coming. Sorry. Took me off my game a little bit. You have been essential to her during this difficult time. She is so much more capable than she was after Aaron accidentally outed her, though. You know what? Yeah, that has a lot less to do with me. And it probably has a lot more to do with all of you if you really want to know the truth. You know what I mean? I think that when Quibs started her own channel, it was the death of the hold that piece of crap had over her. I think that all of you had a lot more to do with liberating Quibs than I did. I had a lot more to do with picking up boxes. I had a lot more to do with schlepping boxes, but I think that the heavy lifting was done by Quibble herself. I think that right around the time she started her own channel, she says, I don't journal. Oh yes, you do. You just don't put pen to paper, but that girl journals like nobody else alive. If you watched her last show, I caught about 8 minutes of it. I struggle. I'm telling you, I don't like watching Quibs, but because I feel like a voyeur. But to me, she journals. It's what she does. Kristen Melinda says, I saw her live earlier. Pardon me, but F that guy. Glad she has you to help her out of a bad situation. Thank you, Kristen Melinda. And I will take credit for that. I most assuredly helped her out of a bad situation, but it had a lot more to do with moving things than it did with the heavy lifting was definitely done by Quibble. Moose is fantastic. I saw him yesterday. I didn't see him today. He is, I'm not kidding you. And you have to understand something. When I say this is the most affectionate cat I've ever seen, I'm not a normal person when it comes to cats. Like if you got a cat, I'm playing with it. If I'm walking down the street and I pass a cat, I'm playing with it. I stop and screw with every cat I possibly can because I'm drawn to cats in a way that's probably not normal. I mean, they're my favorite animal. I am far more happy around a cat than I am a human in every situation. It's just the truth. I would rather be around a cat than a person. And of all of the cats I've taken the time to sit and mess around with, this is the most affectionate cat I've ever seen in 54 years. And that's pretty wild. Brazy, glad you're here. Hey, KCK, how are you? And we're talking about a very, very small kitty. I mean, this is a kitten, and I'm sure it probably got separated from mom a little bit young, but this is a very, very affectionate kitty. As I said to Quibs, if I bring the cat here and it doesn't work out, and I have absolutely no reason to think it won't, because Kid is just supernaturally laid back. And the cat has already shown that she has no fear of dogs. I picked this kitty up, this feral kitty, right? I picked this kitty up and I was kissing its head and I looked down and Bo was underneath me, like jabbing his head up into my arms. Any other kitten in the world and I'm in surgery. For real. I mean, but you guys have to realize, I don't know if you've heard Quibble talk about this, but there are 2 Pyrenees dogs on the property that kind of guard the property, and they look more like polar bears. In all honesty, they look more like polar bears than they do anything else. Huge white dogs, and the cats are very laid back around the dogs. So I would imagine that Gertie and Bo are a lot less frightening. Doug, tell me, how much did you want to take it behind the woodshed? I'll be really honest with you. I did pretty well through the entire process. We were in a restaurant once where he said something that made me want to punch him in the ear. But I'll tell you something else, because I don't give a shit. How's that? But I sat in a car with him for an hour and 20 minutes where he told me why his marriage fell apart. So whatever narrative he comes out with, he told it to me. I sat there and listened to it for an hour and a half. So I know what happened to his marriage. He was actually pretty forthcoming. I don't know that I'll share it here because I don't know that. Honestly, I don't think that I owe anybody anything, but I don't think it's the right thing to do either. But let's just suffice to say that he knows exactly what he did. Gertie needs to watch out for cows, no question. And I would rather not crawl under electric fences to get her back. And that really is a thing. When is your birthday, Tommy? What? I'll be honest with you. I don't remember. It's I avoid them like the plague. I don't know about you guys. Here's the thing. I celebrated the last couple because it's impossible to hide your birthday. I've been doxxed, and I mean, my name, my address, everywhere I've ever lived, the people I've dated, like they've doxed me every way you can be doxed. So it's in early July, but I went through in 13 years. I never told one person inside it was my birthday. And there was a guy actually from this state, from Tennessee, that walked up once on my birthday and said, "Hey, man, it's your day, isn't it?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "No, man." I said, he goes, "Nah, nah." He goes, "I figured if you wanted anyone to know, you'd have told me." He's like, "But I fill out your checks." He's like, "And it's got everybody's birthday on it." Early July. Yeah. But so I don't know. Again, there's a lot of funny things I'd like to tell you about the country, but I'll probably wait to do that with Quibble. In terms of all the rest of it, but if you caught the last show and you caught my previous show, that I don't want to hear any more crap about me being hey, Tony Suter, good to see you. About me, when I said, "Nat B, glad you're here." I said on one of my previous shows that I would like to make sure that Quib has all kinds of time and all kinds of space. This is a horrific relationship that she's coming off of. And to be really honest, I'm the previous captain of the lifeboat. I have been promoted to admiral, so more of an honorary title, I think, at this point. But I spent a long time captaining this ship, and I watched a lot of people come out of some horrific relationships. And the truth of the matter is, it's very easy to kind of rebound into things and not do it for all of the right reasons. Wharton Fissel, good to see you. Sarah Bowman, how are you? Judy Lee, good to see you. What's up, Pete? Kareen, how are you? Welcome to the boat. Amy, how you doing? And I'm not saying I have, like I said on the last time I brought this up, I don't mean I'm taking off. I have every intention of holding her hand through the entire process. What I don't intend to do is try to rush this girl into anything. I think Reese needs all kinds of time to find out who Reese is, and the fact that that this is so raw tells you an awful lot. You know what I mean? I've said this so many times, but when you escape a horrific situation, you don't escape a horrific situation. It follows you and it sticks with you. And that whole closure thing, I mean, pardon me, but this is kind of what I do for a living, and I don't know what the hell that means. I do understand that it's good to process through things, but I don't know that we close anything, right? We learn to live with things, 24 and a half days cigarette free. Do you know how close you're coming to being a non-smoker? I mean, the day is coming real quick, like within the week where you can just go, "Yeah, I don't smoke," right? I mean, honestly, you get to a point where you're pretty close. And at the 1 month mark, am I going to come up with a new nickname for Quibs now that might have a new last name? If she were to end up with a new last name, I most assuredly would. We talked about this at length, actually, she and I, and she was pretty fond of it. She also had an opportunity to change her name during that entire process, and she didn't want to. I mean, if you know the history of her dad, that's pretty ugly, right? I don't know that I would want his last name either. I mean, unfortunately, they're both mother-loving pricks, but the one I think might be the lesser of two evil in the name departments. But I'm sure she will end up with a new last name at some point. But no, she's quite fond of the nickname Quibs. She's been pretty open about that with me. So, but she does need a new name. I agree with you, and I'm sure that will be forthcoming. You know what I mean? I'm sure that at some point, Quibs, she's got an awful lot to offer the world, to be sure, right? You guys, anyone who's followed her for any length of time, has a pretty good idea of who she is. She's nothing if not open and honest, and there's not a lot that's hidden back, right? And that's a beautiful friggin' thing, in my opinion. Honestly, maybe it's because of my previous life, but I lived in a world where everybody you met was full of crap. You never got to know someone. It was just everybody had a facade that they put out, and whether you like her or whether you do not like her, she's not putting on anything for you. That's who she is, and I'm a fan, right? And I'm sure that most of you are, but she is a very unique individual with a ton of to offer the planet, and I'm sure Quibble will go away as the last name. Jamie Palmer says, "Tommy, it always sucks watching someone you love hurting and knowing there's nothing you can really do to take it away. The flip side is that you can be there, and sometimes that's all a person needs." I've said in the past, of course, it's always easier when I'm saying this about somebody else. It's so easy to give advice, isn't it? right? It's one of my favorite things to do. It's everybody's favorite things to do because you're not attached to it, right? There's no emotion. Now, man, you can be Dr. Phil when there's no emotion attached, right? If I'm just working on the logical part of my brain, I can solve your problems in 15 minutes. I can't solve mine because I'm emotionally attached to them, right? But that's why we connect, people. That's the whole friggin' concept, right? Make sense? I agree with you. We all deserve happiness. That is, and there's no getting around that. But everybody needs to be happy for real, right? And here's the truth of the matter. If this was one of you, right, and you sent me an email and you said, Tommy, I'm just coming out of a very abusive relationship and I'm on the heels. I had left a cult and I had gone through all that. What do you think? Well, and some of you may have sent me emails like this in the past, so I'll be really honest to tell you. I mean, what I normally say is, "Hey, man, that's not my job, right? I don't give out that kind of advice. But if I did, I would tell everybody to just go slowly, right, and methodically, so that you don't. Because if you're coming off of eating a shit sandwich, it's amazing how good a Triscuit tastes, right? So it's probably a pretty good idea just to clean your palate a little bit and allow yourself to take a deep breath before you start committing to things that may be your new diet. Does that make sense? If it doesn't, pretend it does. Give me a thumb up. Sorry. Excuse me. Just curious if you ever talked about the Nick. You know something? Here's the thing. I'm actually putting a video together about this, and I don't do videos, so this will give you a pretty good idea of. Hey, Lumen. Hey, Seventh. I don't do videos, but this is one of the most fascinating, and I don't mean that in that voyeur sense of the word, but this is such a, and if you don't know what this is why I don't cover it in a live, because I would have to give so much background for this to have context. But this is an individual whose life is being taken apart because of addiction. And it's a story that does need to be told. You're 100% right. And I've been putting it together. I was actually working on it fairly diligently. And then I got a call from a friend of mine that I would absolutely drop anything for. But that is something I was working on before I left. Where do I live? That other spot where it's hot and there are cactuses. Tucson. Before I left Tucson. Good Lord. Getting a little punchy, people. Long days. Robin Miners, good to see you. Thank you for all you do, Robin Miners. I really appreciate you. Shard of Words, what's happening? You watched Turkey Tom cover the vid, and it was like 50 minutes of wild stuff. It's sad, and unfortunately, it's salacious, isn't it? And one of the problems with people who struggle with addiction, drugs, alcohol, and all of that is that it just makes for one hell of a story, doesn't it? And unfortunately, that's it very often. And I don't want to tell the story as entertainment. I really the reason that I'm so fascinated by this is it's just a cautionary tale. It's a life lesson. There are a lot of really fascinating things I think that come out of it. In the next little bit, I'm going to be doing a segment on dreams and why we sleep. And I'll tell you something, people, it's going to blow your mind. It's some of the most fascinating crap in the entire world. There's a brand new book that just came out, and I will tell you all about it when I start the series. And the reason I say that is because I can't remember it, and that's kind of the story of my life, unless it's sitting in front of me with a name. But Ms. Zippy, you live in Tucson as well. It's a great city. What's up, Max? How you doing? Hey, Sandra. Glad you're here. But it's this is one of the Joni Allen. I love you. Thank you so much for all you do. You're appreciated. I mean that. A lot of help that came at a beautiful time. You guys, it always seems to happen that way. I'm not kidding you. Someone will reach out and we'll be this close to going, oh man, we can't help you today. And then we'll donate money and it will come literally like about the exact same time as the email. It's, I'm sorry, I'm not trying to shove anything down anyone's throat. You go ahead and believe whatever you want. But boy, oh boy, it reinforces my faith. You want to believe it's the universe or karma or the fact that whatever, but God, every time we need it, one of you comes through. It's really friggin' fascinating to me. Kristen Kruger, how are you? Glad you're here. Dose of Rose, glad you're here. All things considering, people. I would jump in front of a bus before I would have let her stay in the situation that she was in. Dennis the Menace, glad you're here. So whatever she's got to put up with for this to get better, and if that's 600 times that she goes, let me see what that looks like on that wall. Nat V, how you doing? Or anything else for that matter. That's what you do for friends. And she's far more than a friend. And by the way, Q is far more than a friend, right? But I am also attracted to Quib, and I'm not to Q. No offense to Q's mom. Franklin MC, there's a story to be told, and it's not my story, but there is a story to be told, and I promise you it's coming. Shards of Words, what's happening? Cats, bats, and flowers, good to see you. I'm glad you're here. There's a story coming, and if it were mine to tell people, I would be there telling it. I will probably be right off camera holding someone's hand, but it isn't my story. But it's a damn good one, and you know what? I wouldn't want her pissed at me. She gets receipts. Aaron and Jenna went to Minnesota to be with Natalie in her time of need. Well, I love that. I really do. And and Tommy went to Reese. Well, thank you, Allison Metcalf Palumbo, and I'm glad that Aaron is out with Jenna. I haven't spoken to him in a while. He's a very, very busy cat. I know that he and Quibs have been texting, but the guy kind of leads a movement. You know what I mean? I got a YouTube channel. That cat, what he does is really big time. Brock Bandy, glad you're here. Love your name, man. It cracks me up every time I read Brock Bandy. Yeah, Nat B, you can go down a rabbit hole, can't you? And what they're talking about, people, is there are a whole crapload of these little kind of I guess you would call them fraternities, right? Because there are no women in these things for the most part. Well, no, for the most part, nothing. There are offshoots that are female versions of them or whatever, but they're all male, so they are fraternities of sorts. Hey, tuning in from Toronto. Hello, emoji. But you can go a deep dive down them. And very often it starts with Freemasons. Now, here's the thing. I know there are people who are listening who go, I'm a 3rd degree Mason. I've never seen anything weird in my entire life. I was a 6th degree Mason. I never went to anything weird. I never saw any of that ever. I'm telling you the truth. There was nothing like that. We did a couple of little initiation ceremonies, which were fairly harmless and innocuous. And I'm being honest, I'd love to tell you I had dirt. Sadly, I don't. Thank you, Carolyn Lewis. Carolyn says, Tommy, I simply adore that you and Reese are friends and support each other. I wish I had a friend like you and Reese. You know what? I think a lot of people wish they had friends that, but it may sound crazy, but I found her right here. Every friend I got, I found on the big red button. That's no joke. And I hopped on a plane to Kansas City and then drove to Bug Tussle, Tennessee. If anybody gets that reference, you really got to let me know. I doubt anybody will. Tommy, I found out you like Snoopy. Boy, I do. I'm a huge Snoopy fan. I do. And Tommy, thank you for being there thank you, Sarah. Who is not a Snoopy fan, man? I don't want to know anyone that doesn't like Snoopy. But I'll tell you something. And if Casey is here, if my friend Casey is here, hey, Starina, I'm glad you're here. Yeah, I am so glad that you're here. Let me see I haven't seen you in a while. Pardon me, Admiral. Much love from New York City. I thought you were my friend. I am your friend, Sarina, and I am glad you are here. Sorry I missed you. Hey, Mo Love. SG, what's happening? So, if my friend Casey is here, there is a watch. What's up, Ray Ray? There's a watch made for the guys that went up on the Apollo space, the moonwalk. The original Apollo, the first time we landed on the moon, they wore wristwatches made by Omega, and Snoopy was on the watch. And I'm telling you, it's one of my holy grails of all time. I want the original. They came out with a new one, and the new ones are fantastic, but I want an original one so badly. Yes, Nicola Mack, I'm going to have to go with that. I have no time for secret societies. They are ridiculous in this day. And they should be illegal. I agree with you. Now, here's the thing, man. I mean, if you're the benevolent protection of the Order of Mooses, or you're, whatever, you want to get together because there's something that you feel strongly about, and everybody kind of pools their resources because my dad growing up was a member of a little group that they put together because the local schools were getting ready to defund some of the sports. And they built these clubs that threw parties, but all they did was raise cash to keep these clubs going. But it was a very social thing. They went out a lot, but it wasn't all dudes. I mean, it was all guys that started it, but there was never all male functions. There was nothing stag. I mean, everybody brought their wives to everything these guys did, but they raised a crap load of money and they did a lot of good and there was a lot of connection. I think that the concept, of these groups are a nice idea. It's when you start going, yeah, there's no chicks that can show up. Well, why? Right? Why not? That's I have a feeling they're going to be there one way or the other, right? But if they're not invited, then they're probably victims. And whether or not they're getting paid or not, they're victims. I'm sorry, people. I got a theory on that. And maybe it's because I'm a drug addict, but I've never met anybody happy to sell themselves. Not at any level. Tommy again. Hubby tells me I lose you when the lifeboat is live. He says, did you hear me? I say, what? Big day tomorrow. And abuse. Oh, wow. Thank you, boat and crew. Wow. You know what, Brazy? I couldn't be more proud. You got to be sick. That is amazing. God bless you, babe. I mean it. That's fantastic. You're going to be in my thoughts and prayers. You know what, boats? We get some ones. We get some thoughts and prayers. That's huge. It really is. Brazy, that's absolutely huge. And it's not easy. So if you're hurting, reach out. I know a bunch of people you can reach out to. So do you. If this is a struggle or if you're really going through it, reach out, please. Right? It's going to be tough in the next little bit. I promise you. Carolyn Lewis, thank you so much. Brazy, please, if you're struggling, don't struggle in silence and don't struggle alone. Again, thank you, Carolyn. God bless you. Brazy, do not suffer alone. It doesn't pay off. There have been 3 silver Snoopy watches so far, but you know the one I want, Casey. And I'm not asking anyone for it, by the way. This is a little bit more than the one but I want the Holy Grail. That's what I want. And I will have it. I will have it. I can't begin to tell you how close I have come so many times, Casey. I have come close so many times. In fact, by way of full disclosure, oh my goodness, crazy. That is hot sauce packets, people. I don't know that I have ever seen that many memberships. Brazy, God bless you. That is hot sauce packets. My goodness. Well, I hope you still have a stuffed Snoopy. Nobody should ever get rid of a stuffed Snoopy. Ever. Right? I didn't even get rid of my stuffed Snoopies when my previous cat, Fiona, chewed their hands off. That was my ex-wife. My ex-wife kept that cat. She was a great cat. However, she was not fond of stuffed animals and chewed the hands. I do want the very first one, Casey. I want the very first one. I bought that watch at an auction, right? I bought one. It was at a time I had gotten out of prison. I had started my business, and my business was killing it. And we had a bunch of money in reserve. And I was going to an auction, and I was an eye on an entire segment of watches, and I didn't get anything. And one of the last watches to come up was a Snoopy, and I still had a ton of cash, and everybody had been blowing money, and I bought one. And I had never been more excited, and I wore it on the plane, and I did all of that crap. And when I got it back to home, it was the guts were not legit. It was a Franken watch, and what that means is if you're not familiar with watches, what it means is they basically put parts in this watch that were not made by Omega, and that's a bad deal on a vintage watch, right? It's not a good thing on a new watch either. But if you're buying like a Holy Grail watch, that's not cool. But it was boxed and papered. It looked just like the day you got it, but the insides were not. And the auction house gave me my money back, but I wanted the watch. I didn't want my money back. I just wanted the real thing. But the day is coming. I will get that watch. Hold on, sorry. You want a Spiro T. Agnew watch? Do you want to laugh? You want to laugh? So if you're from outside the U.S. or if you're really young or whatever, Spiro Agnew, I believe was the vice president, right, under Richard Nixon. Oddly enough, I'm not joking at all. You know how they have a section in the high school yearbook where it says like, where are they now? And it's this They're predicting where you're going to be in 20 years, kind of a thing. And it'll say, you know, so and so was seen playing football for the New England Patriots. If a guy was a great football player in school or some such crap. No joke. They said that I was spotted on a deserted island with Spiro Agnew. Not exactly sure what the hell that even means, but that's what was in my yearbook. So every time I read Spiro Agnew, I kind of get a kick out of it. Richard Milhouse Nixon. You got to love, you know, he kind of destroyed the name. They kind of resurrected it a little bit with The Simpsons. But how many people in the U.S. do you think are named Milhouse? I'm guessing that there's not a lot of them. Your mom had a Spiro Agnew watch, and you know, I know the watch. Oddly, as crazy as this sounds, I know the watch you're talking about. It's very collectible. And a Nixon one that said, "I am not a crook," which he did this one with his fingers, and they would go back and forth. I know that watch too. I know that watch too. There is a watch. This is gross, but look, we're 30 minutes in. I'm not going to get demonetized, and I don't care. Watchmakers from the very early days of watches also used to make things like robots, because, and I don't mean like walk around and talk robots, but things that you could wind up, that would animatrons that would do things, very complicated stuff, because all of that runs on gears, as does player pianos. And so the concepts of a watch and a clock and little robotic devices, they're all very, very similar in that you wind up something that gives power to a bunch of gear trains that drive things. And there was a very, very kind of famous watchmaker that makes some really crazy stuff. Like, your watch doesn't just tell times. When the alarm goes off, there's little scenes that take place inside the watches, and they're usually like related to like astronomy. You can watch the phases of the moon, and you can watch, you know, the Big Dipper and things go around. Very kind of cool stuff. There's a guy that dropped $250,000 to have a platinum watch made. All right, we're 30 minutes in. Don't judge me. Of the Oval Office while nice, of the Oval Office while Bill Clinton was president. Oval Office, Bill Clinton. You do the math. It's foul. Like, it really is. It is there you go. It is a very, very dirty watch. And it is a mechanical dirty watch that, are there any Snoopy watches that are valuable? You betcha. There are Snoopy watches that are valuable. The one that there are Snoopy watches that are $50,000 and $60,000. There are some that are more than that. There is a ultra rare Rolex watch that somebody commissioned. And it has Snoopy on it. It's hand painted, and it went up for auction a few years back, and it might have gone for 120,000 or 130,000. No interest in it at all. It's just it's a one-off. But the Snoopys that the guys wore to the moon has Snoopy on it with a helmet, and he's got a little tether coming off, and he's carrying a little, what looks like a lunchbox, but it's his little, he's an astronaut. Very, very cool. Franklin, thank you. But yeah, there are some very, very valuable watches. But this little sick one, it's been on the market forever, because who drops $250,000 to have Monica Lewinsky doing bad things on a platinum watch? I'd kind of like to meet the man that wanted that built, because that seems very odd to me. Today was my mom's birthday, says Tommy Bird. She would have been 64, going on 4 years since she passed. And we used to celebrate her birthday. This year was the first one that I was actually okay. I did pretty good. Tommy, I'm proud of you. And I'm proud of you for saying that, right? For coming here and talking about it, because it's not fun to say that you're having a bad time, especially if you're a dude, because that's kind of the world we live in, right? It's a whole lot easier for the box, some cat named Yohari, right? When we talk about thinking outside the box, there was I don't know what you call him, philosopher? I don't know. Psychiatrist, psychologist, dude named Yohari. Talks about guys being in one box, women being in another box. It's difficult for guys to say we're struggling or we're hurting, but I love it when dudes do, because it is the ultimate sign of strength, in my humble opinion. Renee B says, I spoke with a patient today who has alcoholic cirrhosis. He drank for 30 years, but could take 10 days before drinking. I also had a 22-year-old female with cirrhosis, but could take 10 days before drinking. You mean he could go 10 days without booze? There are people who can go into full delirium tremens every single couple of days for their entire life and never seize up and die. there are people who can die the first time they go into the DTs. It is a very, very strange thing. Like I knew when I used to go buy dope in the hood, which I did for a really long time. There was an old Vietnam vet that would he would be on the corner bumming up enough change to get a 24-ounce Budweiser. He has cirrhosis of the liver so bad that okay, so a healthy liver can process 1 ounce of alcohol an hour out of your system. If your liver isn't healthy and it can't process the alcohol out, you throw one beer back, well, that beer is going to get you really loaded. It's called reverse tolerance. And all this guy needed to get him through a day was a 24-ounce beer. And he would be so wasted. He'd be falling down. Like it really would get him destroyed. But until he could bum up enough money for that beer, he would be shaking so bad he couldn't get his hands in his pockets. And every day, like I would go over and I would say to my friend, I'm going to buy this dude a beer. Man, he's going to die if he doesn't get some alcohol in him. He's in the DTs. And he's like, man, he's been doing that for years. But it's hit and miss. If you're going to be quitting alcohol, listen up. If you're going to be quitting alcohol, talk to your doctor before you do. If you're going to be quitting benzos, same thing, right? You can go into seizures. Those DTs can kill you. They're no joke. It is the number two cause of death in jails in the United States, right? Not prison, jail, where you wait till you go to jail because those people are coming straight off the streets and they come in and they're drinking a fifth a day and they lie to the doctor or the nurse on the way in. Do you drink? A little bit. Then they throw him in a cell and then the following day he's dead. It happens all the time. Be open, honest, connect here on the Lifeboat. The game changer, I promise. Thank you so much. I always get different around my mom's birthday. She's been gone 27 years and 3 days. It happens without me even knowing it. I miss her so much still. You know what? I don't think that's a bad thing. I really don't. I know that it sucks missing people, you know, it really does. But I miss my dad viciously. And I don't know what it is about being here, but I was telling Quibs the other day that, I didn't grow up in a city. I grew up in the middle of the Green Mountains. You know, when you looked around and everything was green constantly. And then I moved to Arizona and I don't know how much time you spent there, but if there's something green, it's probably someone's wearing it. You know what I mean? Other than the cactuses, it's pretty brown. And here it looks very much like the Northeast. And I'm flashing back to all kinds of crap from when I was a kid. And I don't think I'd want to. I don't think I'd want to give up all of that. Missing him and all of it. You know, there's he's such an epic part of my life, you know, and it's a bummer, right? But let me rephrase that. Let me say this a different way. I'm losing so much memory, right? I'm losing so much memory so fast that I don't want to lose that. You know, I really don't. I don't want to lose those. I'd rather hurt than have it go away. I think maybe that's what I'm trying to say. And maybe I don't have any idea what I'm trying to say. I've been up for a long time. Seventh says I'm working through things. I'm proud of you. And I'm not saying that lightly. And I hate saying I'm proud to anybody because it seems like what right do I have to pass, you know? It's just a strange thing. And I don't think I said it for the first couple of years I was on the boat. I would say stuff like good for you. But you know what? I am proud of you. It's a hard world, man. It's a hard world. And it's a much easier one when you do dope. Shitty, right? But it's the truth. So when you take the high road and you choose to do the work that you got to do in order to be the right person, man, that's not easy. It's not. But it beats the piss out of the alternative. Trust and believe it beats the alternative. You know, life without sobriety sucks. It really does. It sucks. Passenger shaming. I'm glad you're here. I'm gonna plug your Instagram because it's the greatest Instagram channel ever. I'm sorry, I love it. I make Quibble look at stuff because it's so cringy. But if you've never seen passenger shaming on Instagram, check it out, please. I promise you're going to thank me or you're going to get really angry at me. But either way, you're not going to stop watching it because it really is just incredible stuff. Hey, Susie Q. Good to see you. Lost Mittens. I heard today that the number one cause of death in 19 to 44-year-olds is fentanyl. I'll take that a step further. See, that's a statistic that they're pumping out, and you're hearing a lot of it. The number one cause of death from 18 to 55. That's the real statistic. I promise you, that's the statistic. Now, that was given out to the public for about a year and a half. Now they're pumping this out. The numbers have not dropped. There is no way it has changed. What they're doing is they're cooking the books because people are getting really pissed off. And now there is an entire there's an uprising, and I'm not taking credit. I swear to God, I'm not. But channels like us that are huge, and there are plenty of them out there, are making a difference. Tucson is only beautiful when we get a lot of rain. You know what, Mississippi? It's a different kind of beautiful, because I swear to God, I'm awed by the beauty in Tucson all the time. I really am. I'm awed by it. But it's different. There's something about green that is just, I don't know. It gets my attention. Hot sauce pockets. I'm way behind. Michelle with one L. Do you know how funny that is? I'm sorry. I had a mother-in-law that used to spell Michelle with two L's, and she said to me when she introduced herself, "I'm Michelle with two L's," and I went, "Don't all Michelles have two L's?" And she's like, "Yeah, I think most of them." I'm like, "Well, then why mention the two L thing?" I don't know. I found it really kind of it cracked me up at the time. Angie Mo. You know what, Angie Mo? Angie Mo says, Tommy, you and Quibs are helping save my. I hope that you know what? I hope something really does. If there's any truth to that, I'm glad that we're helping, and I'm just glad that you're here. People, I'll tell you, the connection thing is a very, very real. It's a very, very real phenomenon. And it does pretty amazing things to transform lives. And I would have absolutely laughed about that if you had told me that 5 years ago. I would have busted your chops. I'd had a lot of fun at your expense. I really would have. And the incredible thing is, I had already read every book where someone had said that the opposite of addiction is connection, because I promise you I didn't come up with that. But I had already read every one of those books. I had already journaled about it. I had already thought about it. But to me, connection was the cure of addiction. But the reason was I couldn't see past addiction because it was my point of reference for everything in life, right? I was 46 years old and I had never been sober. Really? I mean, I was sober up to 13 or some shit, but never as an adult. I had never spent any length of time as an adult being an adult. You know what I mean? Even like I had a job and I got on planes and I flew to hotels and I spoke and then I came home and I had tailored suits and nice cars, but I was not an adult by any friggin' stretch of the imagination. I lived like a freshman in college. You know what I mean? I was trying to do as much drugs as possible, see how much I could drink and sleep with everything. And do I miss Arizona? Yeah, I do. Passenger shaming. I miss Arizona massively. I miss Squirrel massively. But I'm not more than the need kind of currently. Quib showed you a little bit of the house. I cannot begin to tell you that shed she showed you outside is full. So there's so much that needs to get kind of packed. Tommy, I just want to say again how glad I am that Aaron introduced me to you and your channel. Thank you for being so kind. Sarah, let me just say thank you to AA Ron for introducing all of you to me. You know what I mean? The lifeboat would most assuredly not be where it is right now had I not gone on there to talk about Danny Masterson. That was a huge shot in the arm, maybe a bad metaphor, but a real shot in the arm for a bad cliche, but it really was life-changing for the lifeboat. It really was. And I'll never forget him for that. He also introduced me to my best friend on earth, which is, how do you thank somebody for that? Right. Tommy, 18 years clean today. 18 years? Oh my God. I'll tell you what, I got half of that in a week, right? Go ahead. Hold on. I'll get 5 emails. You're not sober. It's been half of that without heroin in about a week. And that is a long time. I hope you are as proud of yourself as I am of you. That is absolutely amazing. It really is. Oh, I'm sorry. Quibble is I don't know if you got I'm sorry, Relatable Reese. You've probably seen the show Relatable Reese. I found you through AA Ron, but I think it was before Danny Masterson, right? No. The first time I ever went on Aaron's channel was to discuss the Danny Masterson case. I went on there. People, I'm an ex-convict. I don't know if you're, but I go on a lot of channels to talk about prison and what prison is like on the inside. I don't talk about it a lot on the lifeboat. I'll do some shows on it so we can do some question and answers because I know a lot of people find it fascinating. The reason I don't do a prison channel is I'm not a convict, right? I'm an ex-convict. Sadly, they don't ever let you really be an ex-convict. I mean, if you were, there wouldn't be a word for it, right? You would just be done. But I'm an ex-convict, so I would like to focus as much as I can on my future. But to build this channel, I go everywhere and I talk about true crime and I talk about prison and I talk about the things that I did illegally for a long time because it sells, right? It's not, I don't like tainting the lifeboat too much with it, to be honest. And I'm not bad mouthing other channels, but that's what they do. They talk about crime or they talk about prison or they talk about that stuff. I talk about redemption. I talk about the fact that no matter how low you get, right, you can get back up. Because I promise you, people, I've been about as low as you can get. And amazingly, I've seen people lower who have risen from some of the worst situations on earth. You know, it's my best friend Q needs 6 or 7 miracles in a row in order to get out of prison. I mean, honestly, he knows it and I know it. And the people that are paying for, we've dropped a fortune so far to try to get my best friend out, and we're going to keep doing it. Right, we're going to do it until the bitter end. And I'm going after politics. I'm going after, I mean, politicians rather. We're going after every single avenue we can to. Yeah, you know what? I'm going to cry if I go down this road. I'll talk about this on the next time we go. The next time we go live, I'll talk about Q. I had a rough call with him today, and I thought I was ready to get rolling, but I'm not, and I'm gonna lose it if you know what? Here's the thing with his GoFundMe. I've talked very often about setting up a GoFundMe page to do stuff for Q. The most amazing thing happened when I was trying to get off of probation. I hired an attorney to take my you can't just get off probation. It doesn't work like that. You can, but you got to wait the entire time. If you do nothing wrong, if you get not one write up, if you pass every piss test, if you do everything right, you can get kicked off halfway through your term of probation, which I wanted more than anything because I wanted to move. I wanted to get out of the friggin' town where I did all of the damage. And so I hired an attorney to take the case. And I said, they said, is there anything else that, could sway the judge? And I said, well, I got 20,000 people that I talk to about sobriety all the time. And she's like, well, how long have you done that? And I was like, 3 years. And when I spit it all out, she said, what made you get into that? And I talked about Q. And she looked up his case and she took it. And she said to me, I don't, we take cases of, it's like the Innocence Project for people who aren't innocent, right? It's, there are people who change, right? And my friend's guilty. He's not innocent. He doesn't need the Innocence Project. He's guilty. He admitted his guilt the day he got caught. But he was a kid. He was 3 years older than Huxley. Wrap your friggin' brain around that. I'm sorry. Kids do really terrible shit sometimes because they get surrounded by adults who talk them into doing really terrible shit. And those kids probably shouldn't have to spend all of their adulthood behind bars. And you know what? I'm all for people paying for their crimes, believe it or not. I'm not a bleeding heart, right? I'm not pissed off I went to prison. I went to prison for things I did. I paid my sentence. I think it was a fair sentence, maybe even a little long, but I went and I did it and I got out and whatever. I'm not pissed off about that. I changed my life while I was in there. It's all good. But my boy's done about 30 years and he's never had a write up in prison. And if you've done a day in prison, you know how friggin' hard that is. From the day that dude got arrested, he became a man and he's lived that way since. And he doesn't deserve to be in prison anymore. That's all I got to say about that. I'm here because I need hope. I find it here all the time. Thank you. Shauna B, that's why I'm here too. You know that? Kristen Melinda's hurting? How did I miss this? Hold on, people. We got to back up. Because, all right, here we go. Antibiotics. The neck is still sore, but gradually getting better. I sort of cover it with my ponytail. Oh, yeah. I'm sorry. Kristen Melinda, thoughts and prayers. I love Kristen Melinda. I really do. I think it's a pretty wild thing when someone decides to change their life, and she just did, and she's fighting a really, really great fight, and I love that. So that lawyer decided to take on Q's case for nothing, and she got several other people to assist her, and they went a really long way for free. And then when they couldn't go for free anymore, myself and one other gentleman who happens to know him from the inside as well have been able to take round 2. And if we can't handle round 3, I promise you I will be here asking for money. I will be. But I ask you people for money to help people get off dope. So I would rather money go to that. I really would. But if I can't take care of Q, then I'm going to ask for help, because I'm not going to stop trying to get him out until he is. The world will be a better place if he's not incarcerated. That's it. Flamin' Jackson, I love you, man. I'm glad you're here. Honest to God, that's it. It would be a better world if he were free. He'd be doing a better job at this than me. I promise you. He has a bunch to offer. And the crazy thing is, this isn't even his fight. His fight's not drugs. His fight is he believes that a lack of fatherhood and a lack of father figures is the problem on planet Earth. And you know what? He might be right. Steph22 says, is there hope? Yeah. You know what? There is. Currently, and I hate doing anything that builds up or gets people fired up for no apparent reason, but we have a hearing to find out whether or not he'll get a hearing. Now, if that's the stupidest shit you've ever heard, welcome to the federal government. But they're having a hearing, and this hearing basically determines whether or not the next court's going to hear but this dude's never been in a fist fight. He's never gotten fired. He's worked at the same job for 30 years. If a guy worked the same job in prison for 30 years without a fist fight or getting fired, why would you keep him in? I mean, for the love of God, he's proven he can make it. For real. You have no idea how hard it is to work in a factory in a prison. I promise you got no idea how hard it is. It's a bunch of dudes who think they're alpha males, and a great number of them really are, right? And their business model goes like this. You 7 guys assemble shirts, right? You got to bring 50 of these shirts to a box, and we pay you per box, but we pay you as a team. So if one dude's not doing the job right, they just beat the piss out of him. I mean, it's not a normal environment. You don't go and go, hey, you need to be a little quicker on that machine. They just beat him up and get somebody new, because it's about getting paid. And these guys a lot of them have drug habits, and most of them have attitude problems. It's a very ugly environment. And the fact that cat worked there for 30 some odd years without ever losing his job or getting fired, and doing it in 3 different factories. They flew him to other places to start other unicorns. I mean, this is basically the greatest inmate of all time. Truthfully, not to sound too much like a Tommy Bird says, that's incredible. Really, no one will write, not a write-up within 30 years.
really fathom it. Neither can I, right? I mean, look, people, I did 13 years, and I probably averaged 5 or 6 write-ups a year for that entire time, which is nuts because for the last 5 years I was in, I didn't get any write-ups, right? But if you took it through the entire time, oh God. I mean, in the beginning, I got a write-up every 5 or 6 days. For real. It's impossible not to. First of all, I was probably there. The last time I went to prison, I was there 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And I got called up and, I walked up to medical. I said, "Hey, what's up?" I heard my name. He goes, "Yeah, you have to take a drug test." And I was like, "What for?" And he goes, "You're on the random list." From that day to the time I left prison until the time I got off probation, they tested me every single month, right? And I failed all of them. Like at the beginning, I was addicted to heroin. I'm like, screw you, I'm going to fail. Like, but take more good time, take more good time, take more good time, take more good time. I couldn't quit. I was giving away my life. I was giving away my life 30, 40 days at a time, 100 days at a time, 200 days at a time. Time I could have been free. Time I could have been on a lifeboat helping people. Right? Instead, I stayed inside doing stupid shit until I met Q. Right? And Q saved me. Debbie, good to see you. In Texas, prisoners don't get paid for work, says Renee B. Is that right? Well, it's here's the thing. Let's see. I started out at 16 cents an hour. I was making uniforms for the military. So if you don't allow them to get paid for that particular job, then they call it slave labor. And we have a law in the U.S. that did away with that. I'm not being funny. Like this has been litigated, and that those jobs have to be volunteer, and they have to be compensated. So Unicor, which makes all of the uniforms, you would not believe all the stuff Unicor does. It is a massive, massive industry, but all of that is paid. But Q, who's probably the highest paid, I'm not being funny. I don't know if there's anybody that makes more money in the entire federal system as an employee of Unicor than he does, because every whatever year and a half you go and you're still there and you haven't gotten in any trouble, they got to give you more money. You get an override for each hour that you work. He's to the point now where he's making dollars per hour, right? I mean, probably not a lot of them. He probably makes $2 or $3 an hour, but that's 30 years of seniority to get to that point. And I used to work 60 hours a week for $90 a month. So considering Q is making probably $120 a week, he's making a lot more money than anyone else is, to be sure. But he earned it. That's what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to go in and you're supposed to rehabilitate yourself, and you're supposed to say, look, check it out. I can do this, this, and this. I can get a job. I can do this. That's the idea of rehabilitation, so that you do not get recidivism. Crazy. Maybe if when you came in the door, they said, sit down. Let's come up with a plan to how to keep you out of prison. Novel as shit, isn't it? Apparently in the 200 years that we've been doing this whole prison thing, that never occurred to anybody. Can I get a big shout out? Yes, my shirt is on, Lisa Marie. I am sporting a shirt. Oh, that's in reference. In Quibs. I may have wandered in here without a shirt on, but currently I am living right around the corner. And by around the corner, I mean the corner. Thank you, sassy girl. You know what? Honestly, people, I almost feel weird getting thanked for that. You would hope your friends do. If your friends were needing help, you would go and help them, right? I believe that. Tommy, knowing all you've been through, don't you think a lesser sentence of imprisonment and then probation would do more to rehabilitate people and motivate them? You know what? Sadly, no. And here's why I say that. I got 150 chances. I'm not whooping you, people. And everybody does. Don't let anybody BS you. They give you so many chances. I ain't going to lie to you either. I had the right complexion at that time to get a lot more chances than my darker skinned brothers. That's the way it was. I assure you, I'm not cool with it, but that's the way it was. Now it is the exact opposite. I promise you. Now they are doing, now if your skin color is mine, they will give you twice the sentence than if you are darker in skin color. And that's just, and it goes in ebb and flows. That's kind of how it goes. But I needed a prison sentence. And the first one didn't work. The second one didn't work. I needed to be incarcerated to protect the public from me because I was stealing anything I could get my hands on. And it was getting to the point where it was getting dangerous because I was getting more bold and more bold. And then I started robbing banks. And those kind of things are when people get killed by accident. I wasn't carrying a gun. I never carried a gun, telling you the truth. Never once did I rob a bank with a gun. But if I go in and I'm robbing a bank and the guy, walks in who's got a concealed carry, I'm getting shot. Now we've got a big jacked up situation, right? Or I drive off fast and I run somebody over. The risks I were taking were getting so much bigger and bigger and bigger. I needed to be put in prison. But if the first time I had gone to prison, someone sat my ass down and said, here's how it's going to work. You have no rights, right? Nothing. You're not getting a radio. You're not getting cool clothes. You can't buy shoes. You got nothing. For the first 12 months in here, you're getting prison issue clothing, right? Nothing. Here are your options. You're going to go to school or you're going to get a job. If you don't, you'll always wear these. You're never going to be able to buy any clothing. You're not going to be able to buy a radio. And if we catch you with one, we take it because it's only going to be to you. Everybody has to have a number, and that's how it's supposed to work. In most prisons, they kind of enforce that shit so people don't steal from one another. But don't let a guy walk in off the street, buy a bunch of cool crap, lay on the bed, and because he's got people on the street who put $600 on his books, he buys a little drugs on the inside and starts slinging. Now someone that walks in from the street, what do they see? Hey, who's that dude over there, man? I've never seen him in the chow hall. He sells drugs. What? Yeah, he sells drugs in here. Oh, so on the street, guys selling drugs are making money. And in prison, guys selling drugs are making money. Well, I wonder why guys get out and sell drugs. If on the inside you said, if you work for the first 12 months and you don't get one write-up and you don't do anything wrong, you get out of that small ass cell and we're going to put you in a larger one, right? A little bit bigger. And you got a TV in your cell, which you're not allowed in the first year. No matter how good you are, you ain't getting a TV, you get nothing. Now you can buy a radio, you can start buying some clothing. If you screw up, you go back to wearing the regular stuff. They take your TV, if it was a reward, right? A carrot and a stick kind of program in there, they just beat the piss out of you in there. There's no reward. If you do everything right, I used to get up. This is no shit. I would get up and go to work. I was the clerk in the kitchen when I was working in Indiana in the federal system. I'm working in there. I mean, I'm not going to tell you I was working 8 hours a day because it didn't work that way. But I was in there for 4 or 5 hours a day, every single day, in there doing payroll, doing ordering, doing all this shit. Then I would go to college, right? Then I would go back to my cell where my cellmate would be nodding out like this from shooting dope. And he and I are getting the same good time. Does that make any sense? He doesn't do a damn thing. He goes out and gets dope, goes up into his cell, shoots it, lays around all day while I'm going to college and working a full-time job, right? And volunteering, no shit, and volunteering to teach a public speaking course, how to communicate better. I get the same good time he does. Well, that doesn't make any sense. The difference between me and him was not that there was a reward system in there, it was that I met Q, and Q said to me, man, live as if you're a better person. You'll become a better person. Right? That started to click with me, but not because of anything that they did to rehabilitate me. They didn't have a vested interest in rehabilitating me. They didn't give a shit. I'm a product. If they don't rehabilitate me, I'll be back in 16 months and they can keep billing you all to keep me there for a year. $38,000 a year or something to incarcerate us. I'll tell you what, I'm not being arrogant, but $38,000 a year, give me 12 of them. Give me 12 junkies walking into prison. And give me half of that, and I will turn them into human beings within 2 years. So I do think that's possible, but we're never going to do it. This is a prison industrial complex, and I'm not trying to get political or any of that shit because I'm not. But right now, the guys in Unicorps are cranking out uniforms. We're doing it not just for our country. We used to make the military uniforms for so many countries you couldn't believe it. Israel, we do all their uniforms. We're doing this shit in the federal prison system. How much cheaper do you think you can make prison uniforms if you're paying a guy doing it 16 cents an hour? Honest to God, think about that. What do you think it would cost to make a prison? I mean, for outside of prison, what do you think it would cost for somebody to make a legit ass uniform for the military? Well, whoever you're paying on that sewing machine, I promise you're paying them $20 an hour. I promise you. I promise you. And there are 7 functions. There are going to be 7 different machines. You're paying a lot of money where you could be paying pennies as long as the prisons are full. Sound paranoid, doesn't it? Well, here's the deal. The first time I went to prison, felon in possession of a firearm was a state crime. Possession of over 500 grams of methamphetamine was a state crime. But all of these crimes, the only thing you went to the feds for was like kilos and kilos, 2,000 pounds and shit of drugs, or crossing a bunch of state lines. That made stuff federal, right? Kidnapping, bank robbery. These were federal offenses. But most crimes were not. Now everything is a friggin' is a federal offense, right? Everything, because they needed to pack the prison system. Why? Because the president, if I tell you who, you'll tell me what side I vote for. So I'll just say this. A president back in the day built 27 new federal prisons when he was in office. I don't know why you need 27 new prisons unless you're planning on changing all the laws. And they did. And then they needed a crap load of places to put all those guys. And oddly enough, they opened up a bunch of Unicorps doing fiber optic stuff for the military. When I was in FCI Phoenix, we were doing wire harnesses for the Air Force, where we were sitting and wiring all of these. There were these big bundles of wires, and you would have to do them, and the cables would get plugged in. But that's all they did there was wiring harnesses for the military. Go out to California, to Victorville, California, and at that compound, all of the Humvees that were coming in from overseas, they would come there and be torn apart and taken to, so that they could be made into either street Humvees that they could sell or just simply scrapped. But this was all the stuff coming back from combat. Herlong base. The guys there, believe it or not, are destroying ammunition and guns. Yeah, that sounds safe, doesn't it? I mean, I'm sure they got some pretty rugged ways to keep that safe, but that's what they were doing out at Herlong. And all of these different places have different Unicorps. It's an industry, people. It's a friggin' industry. I mean, you don't have to believe me. Look it up. Unicorps. Got a symbol like this with a big thing with a U through it. Almost looks like my tattoo, but that's just a coincidence. Prisons could make such a difference if they wanted to. They just don't want to. How can anyone expect recidivism rates to do anything other than sky high? That's exactly right. And if you think that this is nuts, tell you what, go research Germany and check out what they're doing. Watch how Germany does their prison system, because they do it a whole lot different. And you'll go, oh, that's stupid. You can't baby these people. Look at the way they're treating these guys. Guys who literally are in there for some of the most unbelievable crimes. When you get toward you've been in 15 years or whatever, these guys are leaving prison, going into town, working at a bake shop, coming back and going back to prison. They wear street clothes. There are keys to their cells. And their recidivism rate is about a third of what ours is. Well, maybe it's time for us to go, this doesn't work. See, we're not good at that, right? The war on drugs has never worked, but we keep cranking that one. 80% of the people in our prisons are in there for drug-related crimes, right? Think about that. 80% of the people in our prison who are in our prisons are you and me, right? Our brothers and sisters, drug addicts, people who are in there to support their drug habit. Desperation, my friend says, is a stinky cologne. You know, Quibble? She says that quite often. Desperation is a stinky cologne. Well, desperation drives people into banks, right? To say put all the cash up on the yeah, that's pretty much standard operating procedure. People don't rob banks so that they can drive Ferraris like in the movies. That shit doesn't happen. They're robbing banks so they can put needles in their arms. You know what, Renee B? This is not so funny. She says, you need to start a halfway house. Um, I have farted around with that concept before. I really have. Problem is they get real dicey with the concept of somebody like me doing it. So what I would have to do to get through the paperwork for it just makes it completely untenable. I mean, in the eyes of the world, I'm a piece of shit. And they don't let people like me near anything like that because they assume I'm just going to. And you know what? I'm almost not mad at them about this. Honestly, there's a lot of other things that piss me off, but I can understand why you wouldn't want someone like me running a halfway house. I do. I get that. As crazy as that is, or as crazy as that may sound, it actually does make a decent amount of sense to me. It's kind of crazy. All right, peeps. I'm at the hour and I'm about the 1 hour and 10-minute mark. And I think I may call it a night because I got up at about 4 a.m. You know what? I sit up at 4 a.m. I don't care what's going on. I have, and it's really funny. I'm going to be talking about this in the next couple of shows anyway. Love you, Ben. I really am going to be talking about this in the next couple of. I bet our country makes buku bucks on those uniforms. Well, it's kind of funny you say that. I'll tell you this one just for laughs. The military blouse that my line made. I was quality control on the Air Force. And it was the dress Air Force. This is not the ones. I mean, we made everything, but my line was dress stuff. So when you were not like when you were going out for formal affairs, not going out on the town, but when you had on your dress stuff, we made those all of that stuff for them. And the shirts, which was our number one seller, either came in short sleeve or long sleeve. The short sleeve they made the guys in the military buy. You had to buy those, right? The dress shirts they don't give you. So the long sleeve ones were $39. The short sleeve ones were $29. And 7 guys were making 15 cents an hour to make them. I would imagine they were doing pretty well on them. I would imagine that they're not having to budget too much to make sure that they can turn a profit on that. Yeah. And here's the crazy thing. Once somebody starts making a little bit too much money, they move them, right? The reason that that what makes Q such a circus freak is they did move him. They kept moving him from one place to another, and he just kept climbing the ladder. Now he's the most valuable dude. Honestly, like I will tell you this. The First Step Act, great. I'll be honest with you. The First Step Act is fantastic if you get arrested today. But if you were already in prison, none of that applied to you. None of it. I was in prison when the First Step Act was signed, and we were all so excited. And I'll tell you something, before anybody gets upset, it was the only thing done in the last 33 years to fix the system. So thank God something was done. Every president that ever ran for office said they were going to do it. Not one ever did. So at least they made an attempt. And I like that they called it the first step because that's just what it was. But it was woefully sad. For instance, 3-strike drug law. You get caught with weed 3 times in the feds, but it's a federal offense weed, like you're driving 20 kilos across the state line or whatever. Honest to God, you're going to put a guy in prison for the rest of his life for driving weed across state lines 3 times? Think about this for a second. Even if you're selling speed. I knew a dude from Alabama. They called Bama, and Bama's doing life on a 3-strike. And when I was living with him, he was my cellmate. We both worked at Unicorn. And when the First Step Act got signed, he was jumping up and down because it said in there, never again will they do a 3-strike life in the feds on drugs. That's great. But it's not retroactive. So everybody sitting in the feds on weed, they're not getting out. Everybody that's got 3 cocaine charges, they're not getting out. Everybody that's got 3, just the new people aren't going in. But they're not letting the guys. Now, again, is that cool? So from a legal standpoint, you go, well, they did break the law at that time, said this. Okay, but you're going to keep them in there for a law that no longer exists? Man, that's effed up. I'm sorry, that's effed up. So if it's a first step, if they're going to do more, the other thing they said is you can program to get time off your sentence. What? So if I do more good stuff, you're going to let me out sooner? You're going to motivate people to be better. They do it in the state. They just don't do it in the feds. Why not? So all these programs that they said you could get time off for, I walked in and went, here you go. Check it out. I did this one, this one, this one. Looked like I was doing cards. Because once I met Q, he's like, you got to take this, you got to take that. I'm like, why? And he's like, because good people do. Because you wouldn't have when you were a junkie, you dumbass. Right? Why not? Would you have ever done this, when you were doing dope? I'm like, of course not. All right. Well, then you have to. But I took every course I could take. Every course I could take. So when they said, well, you're getting 30 days off for this one, or you're getting 30 days off, I'm like, you got to let me go home today, bitches. I'm sorry. I'm like, I had a stack of certificates this high, P90X, right? You're supposed to get time off for that. And they had all of these things. I did everything, man. I did everything. They said, not retroed. Oh, if you get arrested today, that happens. So all this grandiose shit they talked about didn't benefit anyone who was in prison. It was only going to benefit people who got arrested after the First Step Act was enacted. That's a first step. I hope that the second step is to give love to the people that are already in there doing prison life sentences, for drugs, because that's effed up. Spending the rest of your life inside prison because you wanted to alter your consciousness, well, then we need to reevaluate if we call ourselves civilized. That's my humble opinion. Send me an email. Tell me I'm a douchebag. I love them. But I don't think you incarcerate somebody for life for that. There are way too many people out there that are hurting women and kids. Maybe we could round them up. Seems like that's a better use of those really, really small cells. But that's just me. And on that note, people, where is the cat? Hold on, check this out. I'll be right back. What are you doing, kitty? You don't want to say that. I was gonna pick up the chunky kitty and say hi, but she just gave me the angriest look when I was gonna pick her up. She's sleeping so nicely. But I will. I'm hoping to. People, we're rapidly approaching Monday when the kitty is going to get prepared to come here, so that I can introduce you to Moose, that beautiful, beautiful Siamese cat. I'm telling you, Jay Rambo, have a good night. You sleep well too. Brazy, proud of you. Super, super proud of you. Thank you to everybody that supports the boat, and I don't just mean with super chats. I mean showing up here. Right? It means the world to me. It really should. Every possession charge should be converted to community service terms, never prison. I tend to believe you. Right now, possession with the intent to sell, okay, maybe we reconsider at that point. But if you're buying the shit to get high, yeah, community service. And you know how you should spend that community service? In rehab. That's where you should do your community service, right? In a state-paid rehab. And yeah, I could do 4 hours on this, but I'm going to be doing some pretty interesting shows in the next couple of days about the brain and what happens when we sleep. And I've been researching the crap out of this. Don't miss it. I promise you it'll be some of the more entertaining stuff that I do. I love you all, and I will see all of you on the next one. All right. Between now and then, reach out and try to save somebody. Bye-bye.